So right behind me, as you can see, it's a strip mall. So somewhere under all those buildings is my box of toys. My first Battle Cat and my first He-Man. One of my fondest memories was during my birthday, where my father took me to a department store known as Woolworth. The figure that caught my attention was a Modulok. I remember just being so happy and taking that thing home, opening it up and taking them apart and rebuilding them, and it was just so much fun because I finally had a villain to fight my He-Man. So my dad used to live in this row of bungalows while we were living at my aunt's. And every weekend, my younger brother and myself would go and stay with him. So one of the cool things about spending weekends with my dad is that he would buy us fast food and he'd buy us Garbage Pail Kids. And the cool thing about the complex where my dad was living, there was a lot of kids there. And we would play with them and we would trade Garbage Pail Kids and stuff with them. And it was like very, very cool. So that complex was going to be torn down. We would notice every weekend there'd be less and less people there. One day, the people in the front bungalow abandoned the house. That's where we found basically some really cool things. I remember they left behind a Lionel from Thundercats, and so now I had a Lionel, some m.a.s.k. toys. I had a nice little bundle of toys. Until one day, we're at school. My father didn't come to pick us up, so we were wondering if he had perhaps been at home. So we walked home and he wasn't there. I remember my aunt came looking for us and she found us at the apartment and she took us home. So when we got to the new place, I realized my father had not taken our toys. We begged and begged him to take us back to pick them up, and he refused, and he said, I'll simply buy you new toys. And it took a while, but eventually he did. And that's when we moved to one of the coolest places that we lived in when we were children. East of us, there was two arcades. There was the Pac-Man arcade and the Western arcade. But there was also a pretty cool comic book shop. Well, it was more of a bookstore. It was known as Book Village. Every afternoon, either I'd go to the arcade or I'd go to the comic store. To the west was a multiplex theater, which was a discount theater known as the Academy. And every weekend, I'd go and I'd watch Jaws 3. Then right after I'd go watch Predator, and right after I'd go watch Die Hard. And then I remember I'd be walking home. Here's this third grader walking home at night after watching 3 rated R movies. Much farther west was Plaza Pasadena. And I remember it would take us about half an hour to 45 minutes to walk from my dad's place to the mall. And so really, since it took us so long to walk there, we could only make that trip during the weekends. So sometimes my cousin would come over and we'd go to the mall. I remember the first time we went, we saw a basket, and it was this big basket. And it was filled with muscle 4-packs. And the 4-packs were 10 cents. And we couldn't believe it. I think I must have had like $3. And that was 30 packs of muscles. I was super thrilled. I remember we went home and we made our own little wrestling ring. And we were just playing and trading all night. And it was just like, I'll never forget it. For several months, I was walking around with that shopping bag full of muscle figures because it was just one of the most awesome possessions I've ever had. I would later return to the mall. I'd go there with like $3. I'd come out with at least 2 action figures. I remember going there and getting one of my all-time favorite figures, which was the Ninja from Chuck Norris. We really stocked up with toys, and I basically rebuilt my childhood toy collection.